I'm going to use this slightly smaller nib than usual. Or I guess the smaller of the two nibs I usually use with the dip pen. Coming back at this after a week or so of not. GDQ is a lot of fun, but I also kind of stayed like really busy and social the whole time. And you know how that is. You can only do one thing at a time. Trying to get this ink into a state where it'll work the way I want it to. It's the 12th. See how this goes today. First time in a little while. See if how much ink I just managed to dip. And I think what I'm going to write about today is make an outline for a blog post or two about my experience at Awesome Games Done Quick last week. And also misspell thoughts. I just need more ink as well. Nobody has to know the truth about that second H. Why it's shaped different from the first H, that kind of thing. And it is the 12th. So I'm just going to start off with a outline. Well, not like a sequential outline, but the things that I feel like I spent a lot of time on. So a little bullet there. Spent a lot of time probably like several hours on multiple days in the casual room. I'm just going to pick up the speed because otherwise I'll get bored of saying what I'm thinking. And I see somebody's on. Hello. Feel free to type in chat. I should have re-dipped here. So what was I doing in the casual room a lot of the time? I spent a little bit of time in the Discord, trying to see if anybody wanted to like meet up and play Splatoon or Mario Kart just casually. Oh, hi, Eric. And that didn't work as well as I'd hoped, I guess. What I ended up doing was whenever I saw people playing Mario Kart, asked if they're okay with me joining in. And that worked really well. I think the Sunday night while I was there, either the Sunday or the Monday after I'd done some work. Yeah, it was Monday and Sunday, whatever. Just went in, played some Mario Kart. The first time, I spent a little bit of time doing time trials, and then later that evening, a couple was there, and they didn't mind if I played in, and it was a lot of fun. We kind of felt like we're all evenly matched. Like, I don't think I came in first a lot, which is fine. It's Mario Kart. I felt like I was taking on this like youth soccer coach persona, where like the most important thing is that everybody's having fun and that nobody's feeling like left out or picked on too much. But I guess the other thing I did in there was solo Mario Kart time trials, and I finally beat Inner Agent 3 in the Splatoon 2 expansion. That's the like really hard semi-secret boss that you have to go to the train station and look at the locker 8 in the bank of lockers, because Splatoon Octo expansion. And yeah, it's a really tough boss. It wasn't my first time attempting the boss. It will be my last time because I did win. And yeah, like I was trying to, explain how cool it was to a guy next to me who was very nonchalantly playing the Link to the Past randomizer, which, was pretty amusing. It's like, yeah, cool, I'm happy for you. So the other gaming I spent a lot of time doing was in the tournament room. So the tournament room was kind of right outside the casual room. It was a massive space. They had a table of, I think, 8 or 10, probably like reasonably modern gaming PCs set up. They had a table of small LCD monitors, and just, bring your own HDMI cable and thing that plugs into the monitor, and a table of CRTs. I was really reticent to use the tournament room for anything non-scheduled, but I eventually got over that because everybody seemed to be really nice. I had one thing on the schedule, a Splatoon Splatfest for Wednesday. And that went really well, and I'll talk more about that in a bit. And then Will, WPO, had a Samurai Kirby tournament the Friday afternoon. And that one was a lot of fun, and I felt a little bit protective about it because Will only scheduled it after I'd successfully run the Splatoon thing. But it did go well, and everybody had fun. Yeah. And the way that worked was there was a Guitar Hero tournament starting after the Samurai Kirby tournament ended. But they'd already started setting up, and we just kind of asked nicely if we could use one of the CRTs for Samurai Kirby, which went really well. So let me talk about Samurai Kirby. So it's a mini game on the Kirby Superstar cartridge for Super Nintendo. And it's almost like the minimum viable multiplayer video game. What you do is, like, the left player is Kirby, and the right player is some other random Kirby character. I don't really know any of them. And they're standing in like a field at sunset, and there's like a dramatic music cue. If it was from like a Western developer, I'd say it was very like culturally appropriative. And then there's like the sound of wind, and a pop and an exclamation point appears, and whoever hits a button first after the pop beats the other player. So the way the tournament ended up, you basically had like 9 or 10 frames to react, or fields, because it's a Super Nintendo game and running at 60 hertz, like the old NTSC progressive scan, or interlaced, whatever. I know how televisions work. I know how tripods work too. They work wonderful. But anyways, yeah, you have like 10 fields to react, so 1/6 of a second, which is not a lot of time. And the tournament rules for that one were pretty much like King of the Hill, or until you get bored of dominating. There weren't so many people that we felt like we needed to tell most people to let someone else have a turn. I think we did once. But it was cool. Like, you know, we were up front, like, yeah, there aren't any prizes. We just wanted people to play Samurai Kirby. And it was fun. So the Splatoon one I was a little bit more excited about. That's the multiplayer shooter on Nintendo Switch with the squids and the ink. And I'd actually got that one on the schedule ahead of time, like before I even started packing or roasting coffee or any of the other preparation I did. Maybe not before I roasted coffee, because I'll always be roasting coffee. And I wasn't sure how that one was going to go. I put it on the schedule as a Splatfest, which was like a chill Splatfest, I guess. So the Splatfest was the Nintendo's official event that would happen about once a month while the game was active. And I said it was going to be, you know, like a chill version of that. And also, like, I wouldn't have too many rules up front because it would be completely based on how many people played. I figured if we had at least 8 people, we'd be able to do, you know, a turf war, because that's 4v4 is the biggest it gets. You know, with, you know, people, you know, deciding if they want to change modes or whatever. And we ended up with 12 people, which could have been kind of awkward. Like, would we, you know, need to rotate people in and out of the main round? And what we ended up doing was kind of that. We had the 8-person main game, and then we had a salmon run game going in parallel. And the salmon run's 4 players versus computers. Which worked well, and we did a couple like rotating people through the different games a few times. As people dropped out, they wanted to catch other events or get food or something. The rotation changed, and eventually it was like 4 of us, so we just did Salmon Run, and then a few of them left, and we went to, we played Salmon Run online for a little while. And then it all kind of wrapped up right around the 2-hour mark. So the big lessons learned from that one were that I was totally like overthinking and worried about how much to organize it. If there were a lot of people of like wildly divergent skill levels, it would have been like probably a thing where we'd have to have like the good group and the getting better group. But like, I think I was probably along the lower end of the skill level of people playing, this 2.5-year-old multiplayer shooter, because that's how things go. I had like a bunch of markers in case I needed to like do complicated rankings and shuffling names around. But now I just have these like 4 different colored markers that I don't, that I need to find another use for, I guess. Yeah, had a bunch of index cards which were useful while playing pen and paper games later. It's a little bit of foreshadowing. Made some friends, talked a lot, didn't have to play the whole time, which was kind of nice. Playing video games is exhausting. That's my time in the tournament room. So another room I spent a lot of time in was the practice room. So the practice room was actually 2 different rooms. There was the private practice room for people who are actually going to be on stage at some point. And I literally have no idea what goes on in there. I have some theories. I don't need to share those theories. You're smart. You'll also have the same theories. The public practice room was really nice. It was just a massive space, probably half the size of the stream room. And if you really care about dimensions, look them up on the Doubletree Hilton Conference Center website. And they had, TVs, both LCDs and CRTs, and like lots of power strips, lots of tables, lots of chairs. And you would bring your own equipment that plugged into the TV and play on it. So most of my time in there was actually yesterday, the Saturday. So back in November, I realized that Goose Game was like my favorite game last year, and that I could dress up like the groundskeeper pretty easily. And he's one of the more recognizable characters of the game because he's the second character of the game you meet. So I had that for Halloween. I got a GDQ pass. And I'm like, yeah, I'm actually going to cosplay something that I'd never done before. So yesterday I spent a lot of the day sitting or standing near a TV, dressed up like the groundskeeper. So like green overalls, blue, collared shirt, rain boots, the flat brim cap. It was a lot of fun. And because it's like a relatively friendly game, it's a completely safe game to play around kids because there's no naughty language. There's no like violence beyond like somebody like intruding on the goose's goosenal space and them flapping their wings and getting like shoved somewhere, or like spooking the boy. Like nobody gets hurt or anything. I guess you can make people fall down, but anyways, so like a lot of people were like, "Oh, that's cool." Like I, took a few selfies, and some people from the, I guess Goose Game speedrunning community. Yeah, thanks. I'm glad you liked it. Came through, and one of them, and I didn't get their name, sadly, was showing off her strats. Did a run, like a, 20-minute belt run without like too many glitches for me, and I just blew me away. I learned some techniques that I haven't actually managed to execute on. Got to concentrate on those O's. They're a very complex shape with lots of subtlety to them. Yeah, it was a nice time. Like it, and it's one of those situations where, like, I'm so used to, like, whenever I'm playing video games in public, having to make sure, like, occasionally give, like, stop and make sure there's, like, other people who want to play and they have enough, like, there's usually more demand than capacity for any, like, video game in public thing. And this one was not like that. Uh, there were just so many TVs. Like, I did, camp on a prime spot, like, near the hallway where people could walk by and, like, notice me. But I think a lot of people are probably fine to just play in the back of the room. So, yeah, I regret nothing. So I'm going to talk about the stream room next. It is actually not the not the last room I spent a lot of time in. The stream room is probably it's absolutely the, like, most famous part of GDQ, because it's the stream room. Like, it's where the game playing is for the stream is happening. It's kind of a neat setup. There's the huge audience area. I'm not good at estimating, but there's probably space for 1,000 people in there. 1,000, just like a 1,000-person audience in the stream room. There's the raised stage with the streamers and the production team. Off in the corner is a interview section. Really, really slick setup. If I ever have to, like, just for next time I'm at a in, like, the organizing team for a big event, I'm probably gonna, like, write the GDQ people and ask them for, like, details about that layout, because I think it worked really well. A good way to, like, reasonable segregation between, like, the public and the operations team, that kind of thing. Yeah, it was fun being in the audience, and then the audience cam that was up during the intermissions between games, I absolutely mugged for it yesterday before the Goose Game stuff took off. Yeah, it was fun to be, like, up there and on stream, and surprisingly, like, the audience camera didn't get completely mobbed during the intermissions. And there were a lot of questions about the before Goose Game, why somebody was putting wrapping paper over the front row. I have no idea. And I helped because I was wearing gardening gloves, and you can't get paper cuts through gardening gloves. But I still don't know why. By the time I got back to my seat to actually watch the game, it had all been disappeared. Or so far in the background, it didn't matter. So the last room I spent a lot of time in was the board game room. So a bunch of my friends from, like, IRC and, high school, the group chat, a lot of us got tickets, and it was kind of nice because, like, it's close enough to the end of Christmas break that most of us felt we could take time off work. And I'd front-loaded a bunch of hours the previous week because I'd been homesick, and on New Year's Eve, instead of binge drinking, I worked. Not healthy enough to drink, but healthy enough to sit at home and be on the computer. I made some good progress at work, so I feel good about it. So being in the same house was cool because, yeah, we rented a house a little bit far from the venue. The idea was, we'd be able to have, like, meals, get away from the, like, enormous gathering of nerds. I'm not in denial about being a nerd. I'm just, sometimes you need to be away from other people. Wi-Fi to ourselves, cheap parking, gas grill, survival stuff. And, because we are, huge nerds, we wanted to play some pen and paper games and play some board games. Garth has this massive set of board game stuff called Mansions of Madness, and it's a Cthulhu themed semi-computer, semi-board game. I'm gonna write this one big because it's probably my last one for this sheet. No, I'll write the other game we played. And the way it works is you pick a scenario on this computer program, and the computer handles the telling you how to build the board step by step as the game progresses, because you're kind of exploring this mansion and uncovering a plot. It handles a scenario that you're trying to survive, and on the board you're managing player locations, monster locations, that kind of thing. It plays pretty interestingly with this idea that the computer manages a lot of the state of the game, but then there's a lot of state that the computer doesn't manage. And it seems like a interesting challenge to figure out how to architect that. And I think Garth said that there's a first edition that doesn't handle that as gracefully. But the downside is that because you have a computer that's mediating the game, the battery state of that computer can be a concern. We played 2 rounds of this in the board game room, and I think 1 round back at the house. And at one point, we did actually have to figure out how to transfer a save file from one computer to the other, because the Garth's Surface battery kicked and we didn't have a charger for it. But Fargladair had his MacBook and a charger for that. Get my hands all nice and dirty. But it was pretty fun. We played it 3 times that week, and we won 1 time. So at one point, because Garth, we wanted to try something else, the board game room has a board game library. And from that, we picked I want to say Escape from Baldur's Gate or something like that. It's some Avalon Hill game, so I'm probably getting the name wrong. But Baldur's Gate was in it because there's another game called Escape, and this is a, Forgotten Realms reskin of it. And the board game librarian who, recommended it to us said that, the only worry is there's a part where the game changes, and that might be the part where you decide to suddenly stop. And if you are getting tired of the game, absolutely stop playing it, because it's okay to get tired of stuff. Which is, a good way to treat things. And yeah, sure enough, it was kind of a neat game about exploring this town, rolling, drawing random rooms to build out a urban landscape. And then there's the part where the game quits being a, fun exploring game and a one versus everybody else scenario game with, a lot of stats to track, and all of a sudden there's, I misspelled Baldur's Gate. There we go. Nobody will know. And like the point where the spooky stuff starts happening and one player has to go read like multiple pages of rules on their own, without the benefit of like asking more experienced players for like advice or clarifications. Like it kind of went, we're like, yeah, let's not play this and go get some Indian food instead. But I can't say like, it's not like I regret it at all. It was fun. Like I got to experience it. Like I'm not sure when or if I'll ever have another like board gaming experience like that. So yeah, glad I did it. Glad we stopped when we did. You know how it is. And then I think the Thursday, there was nothing that day that jumped out to us. So we stayed at the house and played Stars Without Number. It's a pen and paper game. WPO put together a scenario, and I'm hoping we get to finish it sometime. It was kind of fun. Like it's set in a distant future. There's lots of interesting world building with it. Okay, I'm just gonna run this pen out of ink at the very bottom here. No, it was nice to have a change of pace from the conference or the convention. And I wonder if it's because like my tastes are changing as I'm, getting older and more experienced with these kinds of events, or if my tastes have always been like this and I'm just getting more opportunities, or that taste is being like catered to better. But it seems like there's either I've become more at peace with this idea of not necessarily immersing myself in the event the whole time. It makes going to these things a lot less exhausting. Like at, one of the key features of Chaos Camp for me is that, like, you're never far from where stuff is happening, but the stuff that's happening isn't necessarily like high energy. Like at DEF CON, I always feel that DEF CON, there's a lot of like busy spaces with, lots of stuff to learn, talks that I never go to, contests and villages and that kind of thing. And at Chaos Camp, a lot of the activity, like I do spend a lot of time competing in the capture the flag contests and stuff, but those are still very much like a limited personal interaction. So shout out to my friend Shameless. Met him at a Congress 35C3 in 2018. My friend Bodo at the Berlin Ruby group introduced me to him. And we competed in the CTF, but like competing in these capture the flag games online is, you don't need to be in the same space as literally everybody else who's competing. It can be fun or it can be distracting. And at camp last year, we spent a lot of time just in a quiet area near a power outlet because I didn't have a great way to charge my computer and it was really sunny the whole time. Just, talking to each other, trying to suss out these problems. Need a free hand for that, sorry. And at, GDQ, it was kind of the same deal. Like, there were a lot of opportunities to, play video games alone or with small groups. And there's still, like, a lot of noise and a lot of distraction. But, like, video games are one of the, most intensive ways to pay attention. So I'm going to step away a bit, wash this ink off my fingers and wash this pen off. But I will be back. And I'll probably talk a little bit more in detail about the how the Splatoon thing would work. And also get a beer. Not in that order. Looks like I killed the bottle of beer, which good. Just have to go back to the beer factory to get more. Go right here for now. Beer's getting a little flat. It's the hazards of getting a hoppy beer that it turns out your friends aren't huge fans of in a 64-ounce growler. I think the 3.8 still has the emerald in it that I'm trying to get rid of. And I'm close. It's close to being out. Oh, maybe not that close. So I'm going to write a little bit more about the Splatournament. And these are going to be outlined for a blog post later. So, trying to figure out if I want to switch to cursive or somewhere in between. I'll just go down to the 2.4 millimeter sepia, I think. So, with a caveat that you know, you really want a multiple of 8 players One thing I just noticed that I've like improved on is this Y stroke. Um, so I feel like I used to have a lot of issues where I'd do the downstroke, and then whenever I did this cross stroke, I'd have a hard time meeting up with it. But I don't know if it's practice or, well, practice is absolutely a part of it. But paying attention, and I guess the practice to help me figure out what kind of attention is necessary for that. So the reason for the multiple of 8 players is Splatoon really wants to be a 4v4 game. Any less than that, and the respawn timers start to either be too long, or even if they're short, like maps are too big for you to react to things, like have enough people to react to opponents. So, yeah. What you can do if you have like a multiple of 4 players and not a multiple of 8 is have a salmon run second course. But the problem with that is that while like if you want to be able to like schedule rounds more effectively, it's going to be harder. So turf wars are always 3 minutes. Salmon run is variable. Sometimes it'll, sometimes you'll team wipe and be sad. Sometimes you'll go the whole time. And it's kind of the same with the other, the ranked modes, the clan blitz, your zone control, that kind of thing. It is possible to get steamrolled in those and, not fall into the sudden death. So, it's kind of rough that if you do want to have people switching between modes or like supporting more players, that means there's going to be periods of time where some people don't get to play. I'm not even focusing on the sentences I'm writing here, just rambling. So the nice thing is if you can't rely on like upstream Wi-Fi is usually not great at a big event like this, just because it's not. Yeah, big Wi-Fi deployments are very hard. I know DEF CON and the CCC manage it, but they are, they have a lot more money to spend on people who are good at networks because they are run by people who are good at networks. This one, like the GDQ, feels like it got farmed out to the hotel. So the Splatoon 2, and I think some other games, have just peer-to-peer mode. In Splatoon, it's called the Shoal. And it's pretty easy to use. There is a important caveat. So whoever ends up making the room is going to be the server that everybody else has to talk to. And it is really beneficial if they are in the middle of the group and if they can put their switch high enough that everybody has like line of sight to it. And that includes like line of sight through like monitors or like, computer cases that are full of electronics. Like, they do block line of sight to an extent, and like Wi-Fi is good, but it's still affected by obstructions. Like even here, I moved my Wi-Fi router, like that disc right there. Moved it out from behind that wall just so I could have better internet at my table. Well, that's not a router, that's just an access point. But point stands. So, like, line of sight is significant. You will have a happier time if switches can see the other switches. And another thing that's like low key kind of sad, or I just don't know how to fix it, is that you can't have like a spectator in the round. Which would have been nice because if like we could have had like a projector instead of everybody like hunched around one player's computer. But that's life. So I am going to switch to cursive at this point. Running out of stuff that I feel like I need to talk about. Yeah, let's do it. And it's going to be fun getting some of these pens started up. I brought this one with me, so it should start relatively happy. And I bet the Metro, like the Pilot pens, will all start fine because they just seem to work better. Let's check on the Kakano. I'll probably write the names of games whose streams I watched. Oh, the Doom block. This one's taking a moment here. Make some progress. So the Doom block, I went to the stream room for that one, and it was a riot, and also not particularly packed. So the first one in that block was Sigil. So this is John Romero's Episode 5. Of Doom 1. I do not recognize Doom 2016 as being Doom 1. It's Doom 4. Cope. So the Sigil run was really great. I've been playing Sigil a lot, and I learned some new secrets. I don't know if I'll ever, like, speedrun it. Because I do like to shoot all the things, because it is Doom at the end of the day. So after that was a medieval. I actually haven't used the Lamy Nex with 3 X's or 2 X's or something in a while. Wow, it started right up. So a medieval, it's a new, and by that I mean 2019, retro style shooter. So the way I'd like, describe it is it has like heretic weapons. a I'd say like I don't want to say like Quake level design because there's a lot of curves. Really trippy level design. Almost psychedelic. And the story is like, as much as a retro shooter needs a story. Very simple story. But like modern graphics technology, I guess. Or a modern look. It's a retro shooter, but it uses pixel shaders. And the run for this was hilarious. They had the developers the Indefatigable. They had the publisher, or they had Dave Oshry from New Blood on, who kind of like stole the show. But it may have been like a more convenient time for him, or, he's the kind of personality that runs a game publisher. Moving the paper around too much. And who else? Oh, they had Andrew Holschult, their sound guy. And he didn't get to talk much, but he had an interesting insight about the music and a couple of the sound effects. And it was a good run. Like, he was playing on easy, which, I don't know, like, I, didn't play that game on easy. And it feels weird to go to a, like, speedrun festival where somebody's playing a game on easy. But I don't necessarily know how much playing it on a more difficult mode would have been, or if it just adds more, like, bullet spongy enemies. A lot of the runs seem to be about, what's other pension? I'll use the Metro. A lot of the runs seem to be about, like, skipping terrain, and, like, with that, other enemies just mean that you don't get to show off as much. Oops, that's a little bit ink down there. Don't get to show off as much. So after a Medieval was the Doom 4 run. So confession time, I actually went back to the house for this. And my excuse is it was late, I was tired, and it was also relatively long. I think it was a few hours. I can always watch it online later, and that's that. Gotta say, it was a good week. I'm hoping that next time, I don't know if I'll ever get to a place where I could, like, stream on the big screen. But it's a fun event regardless. Like the gaming with other people. And even if, like, I don't end up going back, it'd be fun to bring some of the things to other events. At Tour Camp a couple years ago, my friend Greg and I, we tried to run some Doom area. And Doom's kind of a hard one because it's It involves like source ports and files and stuff. I could absolutely see getting a. I don't know if there'd be the population to support Splatoon, but maybe like a Mario Kart thing going some evening. Once my June schedule gets in a better shape, I might send some emails about that. But other than that, thanks for watching, and take care.